Hey everybody, I'm Matt Rosenthal, CEO of Mindcore Technologies and cybersecurity expert. Today I'm going to share with you 3 tips that I learned from being a firefighter that helped me become a multimillionaire. So guys, keep in mind, this is from 15 years as a firefighter, thousands and thousands of hours of training, and all sorts of fires, whether it be a house fire or a car fire, it could be a dumpster fire, rescuing people out of elevators. It doesn't matter. These 3 things were the highlights that I took away from that experience. So let's get into it. So the first tip is something that many people take for granted, but unless you've been a firefighter, you wouldn't really understand how important it is to be able to pivot. You could be crawling around in a fire, you could pull up to a fire. You have to be able to assess these surroundings and know when things are changing around you, when the circumstances, when the environment is changing around you, you've got to be able to recognize that. You've got to be able to pivot. That is one of the most valuable lessons that I learned from being a firefighter that unquestionably plays into every single day in me running my business and any business that I've not only run, but that I've worked in and that I've contributed to becoming a success. I would take it a step further and actually equate that to growth, right? So the growth mindset is still a part of pivoting. You've got to be able to pivot. The second thing that I learned from being a firefighter, integral to being a firefighter, is teamwork. If you think about it, when I get on a fire truck, I know that if I'm in the driver's seat, my job is very specific. If I sit over here in the officer's seat, my job is very specific. If I get in the back on one side, I know when I get off that fire truck, I'm gonna go hit that fire hydrant. If I get off the other side, I'm grabbing tools. I'm gonna go in and do a search. All these things, they all have to work together. They all have to be symmetric. It's like gears on a machine. They've gotta work without thinking. That's teamwork. We know what each other is doing. We know what each member of our team is doing. And when one person fails at what they're supposed to be doing, the entire team is hurt. And I mean literally hurt. There's a lot of bad things that could happen. Take it a step further when you're in a fire and you're crawling around in the dark, and yes, you can't see anything. You can't even see your hand in front of your face. Knowing what your partner is doing, knowing what the person that you went in there with is doing is so important. You can anticipate what they're gonna do, because if you were in their spot, you'd do the same thing. All of it. It goes on and on and on. Very, very important. Of course, that plays a role in any work environment. I used that mindset along the way when I was building my company, from the time I had 1 employee to the time at a certain point I was up to 40 employees or so. Every single day that plays into it. If any one member of the team doesn't follow a process, doesn't stick with their workflows, their habits get weak, they go back to old habits, they don't communicate well. Any of those things impact things like customer satisfaction, impact the delivery of the service. There's so many things that are impacted. I mean, I'm not sure that if I didn't have that firefighter experience, all those years of having it drilled into your head that teamwork is so important, that I would have had that level of mindset in business. The third thing is communication, which I touched on a little bit. With communication, I mean, I'll tell you a quick story. As a firefighter, one of the last fires I was in, so the communication begins when the dispatcher actually comes out on the radio and tells you what you're going to, what you might be going into. This particular one, it came in as they call it a working fire, house is on fire, and there's people trapped. So on the way to the firehouse, we're hearing updates from the dispatcher. We knew it was real. They say things like, officer on scene is stating, house is on fire. They're validating it. Then on the way to the fire, they're giving you more and more information. But here's really where a communication failure almost caused me a problem. I got off the fire truck and there was like 100 people in the street. You can still picture it now. 100 people in the street, everybody's screaming because there were people that were trapped in the house. So I jumped off the fire truck. We were the first fire truck there. And there was only 2 of us. There was the driver. His job is to get on the back of the fire truck and work the pump, get us the water. There was the guy in the officer's seat, and it was me in the back. That was it. When you get off a truck with that much chaos going on, you can't forget to grab a radio. So I jumped off the truck and I forgot to grab a radio. I went right down into the basement where I knew that the fire chief already was, and he needed assistance because somebody was in the basement. I go down into the basement, open the door, there's fire everywhere, it's like rolling over our heads. He and I actually start crawling around, realize we can't get anywhere. So I actually made a mistake. I opened up the hose, on a fog stream. And what that does is it steams everything over and it gets really hot. So we turned the water off. We're like, all right, forget it. We got to find this lady. He didn't have a radio either. I mean, the two of us both forgot our radios. We start crawling around and you can't see what's going on. So we're feeling our way. We finally get around to what seemed like a wall, which was probably in reality in daylight the same height as this. And what we didn't know was that it really was just a couple of tiles, a couple of boxes of tiles that they were doing construction with. And they were about this tall, and we could have just gone around them if we had crawled 3 feet further. We spent 5 minutes trying to knock them down. Finally, discovered we can go around them, and we found the lady on the ground there. We didn't have our radios. We couldn't call for help because the two of us were just so tired that we couldn't lift her up. We couldn't get her out. So I said to him, I said, Mike, you stay here. I'll go back out and I'll get a backboard. So I ran out. Nobody knew we were in the basement. I ran out of the basement, up to the fire truck, and I'm like, we need help. We need help. We need more people. It was weird. It was like nobody was paying attention. It was like in slow motion. So I said, forget the backboard. I ran back into the basement, still didn't grab a radio, went back in, found Mike, and he grabbed her feet. I grabbed her hands, or her wrists, and we did the best we could. She was burned 100% of her body. She had no skin left. So we had a hard time because as we tried to pull, we kept slipping off. We finally got her out. And that was a huge lesson in communications, especially on the fire scene. The means of communications is so important, but being able to communicate with those around you, update them, let them know what's happening, let them know where you are, let them know status. It's exactly what happens in business. When you are on a team and you're in business, your team needs to know what's going on. You have to have open communications. You have to have a way to communicate efficiently, effectively, smooth. You have to set expectations. I mean, these are things I learned not just from that one day, but from 15 years as a volunteer firefighter in a very, very busy firehouse. And to this day, I reflect on those experiences, and I can definitely say that they had a huge impact on my success in business. So those are my 3 things. I hope this video was valuable to you, and I hope you enjoyed it. And also, if you want to find out more about how we can help you with your IT, with your technology, with your cybersecurity, click the link down below, schedule a free consultation. We'd love to speak with you.